For my title sequence, I used a custom particle emitter and a layer of text mid-dissolve to create the illusion that text was dissolving into sand. I made an emitter map which was made up of a source mat and a logo source. The logo source was programmed to disappear in a pattern predetermined by the source mat, which was just a layer of noise, giving a random appearance to the text dissolve. This dissolve was then linked to the emitter of my particle simulation layer, which would create particles where there was no longer text, creating this illusion. For part 2 of my title sequence, I used 2 separate image layers moving in a predetermined motion to mimic a camera crane shot. I then implemented an artificial sandstorm simulation using Trapcode Particular. Inside of Particular, I set the particle texture to mimic the layer that was my dust cloud element that I brought into my layers previously, essentially allowing each individual particle to create a duplicate of that key layer. I adjusted the lifespan of the particle's size random, opacity random, physics, wind resistance and turbulence to realistically copy the effects of a real-life sandstorm. I then integrated this with several layers of stock footage of sand flying over crests of dunes. This and a sky replacement and color correction were the things that led to my title sequence being what it is. Shot 1 is evidence for my set extension and matte painting skills. After starting with plate footage and tracking it with the Foundry camera tracker, I used that data to put many different elements into the plate footage. Each shot has been masked, feathered, color corrected and scaled to the appropriate size to create a realistic set extension when composited onto the plate footage. Some of the individual layers shown in the process folio are a combination of several layers to create a seamless matte painting element. I then used the tracking data to also include a custom particle system to create some clouds. Those clouds were placed in 3D and they were tracked into the scene. And the color correction of the clouds and the overall color grading. In the foreground of shot 2, there was a lake or a body of water that realistically would have had reflections across its surface. Since the water and temple were 2 different elements in the scene and completely individual from each other, there was no pre-existing reflection, so they had to be implemented in post. Using a number of plugins to achieve my goal of realistic water reflections, I duplicated the temple layer and moved it forwards in Z-space until it was level with the waterline. Color correcting it and reducing saturation, I then used VC Reflect to flip the image upside down. And I then masked around that image to the places where the shore met the water. The 3D model. ZBrush allows the artist to manipulate shapes in clay to sculpt a model. Mainly using the clay build-up brush, standard brush and inflate tool, I blocked out the basic structure of the animal, trying to pay close attention to the detailed biological diagrams of similar animals. This scientific accuracy adds another layer of realism to the model and scene it is composited into. I then added physical texture to the model using several brushes and the build-up and removal of clay from the model to imitate dry, weathered skin and wrinkles in locations of high movement. Using a finer brush, I go over the model again and create the outline of scales and use clay build-up to create medium-sized spines over his or her back. These are the final details sculpting wise for the model.